This is the Josh Lynott Project. Thank you so much for lending me your ears and tuning in to this wonderful podcast. I hope you have a great time. The goal of this podcast is to help you slow down, to encourage you to take more risk, and to appreciate the one percenters. And the one percenters I define are the little unexpected moments that happen throughout your day that make you smile. So if you finish listening to this podcast and you start to pick up on these little one percenters, then that's my job done. And another goal of this podcast is that I hope it feels like a conversation with a close friend. Now, this podcast is sponsored by What a Sesh. They are my running and mindfulness retreats. If you want to see what they're about, check it out on Instagram at What a Sesh, S-E-S-H. And my next retreat is coming up in October, so you'll be able to follow along and see what all that's about. I'm about to launch an online virtual course which covers all the content from these retreats. And if you'd like to come to a physical retreat, the next one is going to be in Tasmania 2024, unless I get something sizzling before that. But for all updates, check out What a Sesh. I would love to have you there. Well, welcome back. Episode 015. I am so stoked to have you here. Damn, 15 episodes. We're coming in on that 4-month roll. So I'm excited to be here. I have had 2 coffees today. It wasn't my intention, but I went to the cafe this morning to do a little bit of work, write out a flow for this podcast. Then my housemates rolled up. They bought me a second coffee, and cycling back, I felt a little bit shaky. So we'll see what that does for my cognitive function, ideas, and overall buzz of today's podcast. First things first, if you've been listening, you know the drill. We're starting off with a poem. I don't have a name for this, but if it was to have a name, it would either be Colin or What Happened. So I'll read it and then I'll tell you what inspired it afterwards. What happened to the man who lost his spark? What happened in the hours after dark? I can't help but know. Lean and elegant, adventurous and wildsome. Scars on his arms, proof of living, brushstrokes of life. Tattoos with lines blurred, ears pierced, a sharp edge. Did you see him, bright and alive? A sight to behold, like a mountaintop at sunset, before the clouds roll over, knifing against the lilac blue sky. And what happened, finally, when the storm rolled in? Tell me the orchestra kept playing and the engine kept revving, like melodies lost in the wind and fumes on a highway. And did you keep driving, music blaring with a glimmer in the eye? And you too know of a man who lost his spark? I wonder what happened. So that's this week's poem. And I'll tell you where that was inspired from. So yesterday, kicked off the week at a local cafe near me. My housemate and I were having a coffee. We just pulled up a little stool each and placed it in the sunshine. And whilst we were sitting there, we were next to, it wasn't a bus stop, but there was a random bench in front of a wall. And this man came in with quite a lot of energy of sorts. And he's like, do you mind? Like, can I please sit down? I'm struggling to walk. So, yeah, mate, no worries. You can sit there. We're not using it. And after a while, I got chatting to him. I was like, what are you up to today? And he asked us what we were up to. And we were heading to a waterfall, and he was pretty happy about it. And anyway, this man lived locally, and I don't really remember how we got onto it, but he told me that he'd lived in a lot of places and that the Blue Mountains is one of the best places he's ever lived. And I asked him, where else have you lived? And he said Ladakh in India and Kandy in Sri Lanka. And then he also said that he lived in Singapore. And he said, and then conversation kept going. And then he was saying, I can't remember how he was telling us, but he said that he used to be a triathlete. And he was a triathlete up until the point that he moved to Singapore. And when he moved to Singapore, that's when he stopped because he didn't have anyone to train with. It was too hot. Anyway, then later in the conversation, he said, the doctor reckons it's because I stopped triathlon that I now can't walk. The man, he wasn't in a wheelchair. He could walk, but it was obviously a painful or exhausting experience for him. Anyway, I got in the car afterwards and I was just like, what is it? Like, why do people lose their spark? And I've come across people like Colin before, and it's like at some stage in their life they were so adventurous, or like this man had lived all over the world. He was so fit when he was younger. Why is it that people lose their spark or their desire? Like, is it a life event? Is it a life event that intersects at the same time as an injury? Is it a whole range of things? But why is it that someone that was so adventurous and so driven, because you have to be driven to be doing triathlon. There's no way about it, doing 3 different modes of training and such high output. But anyway, it's a thought that has come up many times, not just with Colin, but just observing other people in my sphere and in my world, or strangers. And it's just like, why do humans lose their spark? So that's what this week's poem was, inspired by yesterday's little interaction. And the poem actually got rolling whilst I was on the gravel bike last night. It was funny. I was just out doing an easy spin at sunset, and I was just talking to myself, and I swear that everything I said out loud rhymed or flowed. I think I probably could have written about 4 poems on the bike last night. Anyway, I came home, and once I got into bed last night, I think I had 4 hours of writing where I was just going one after the other after the other. So that's this week's poem. Thanks, Colin. And I'll take it on my way that I don't stop, because if I stop, then maybe the wheels will fall off. So take what you want from that poem, take what you want from Colin. Maybe there's a little life lesson in there, but thanks for sharing me a little excerpt of your life. Cole? Well, what's been happening this week? Just been working on the fundamentals again. Last week was a big week of training for me, more so on the running front. I had about 11 and a half hours of time on legs alone last week, had an hour of strength. So it was a little bit less than the week before, but it felt bigger because of the amount I did running. So I think that was actually my biggest week of training for the year. Definitely feeling it in my legs at the moment. So I think this week I'll probably spend more time on the bike. Made a little visit down to Sydney, caught up with some friends, which is always super energizing. Worked on some more pitch decks, some editing. As I've touched on previously, a lot of my editing at the moment is just purely off iPhone. So it's kind of cool to be doing jobs from an iPhone. I find it crazy how that has happened. I've been working just on output. Output is just one of my biggest goals at the moment. Get in front of more eyes, get in front of more people, and just see what opportunities that begins. To measure that objectively, if you looked at my insights on Instagram 30 days ago, I was at 30,000 accounts engaged. Now I'm at 82,000. So it's super cool to see that growth from consistency. Every reel I put out is a little practice of storytelling. So that's been super fun. And yeah, still working on brands to pitch that supplement what I do. think that protein one is going to be emailed out pretty soon. But I have a few little ones coming in, which I am pumped about. What else this week? The best incense that I bought was dark cinnamon. So I've got that burning in the background. $3.50 from my local health food store. Makes the house smell super nice. Fighting off funnel webs, chopping wood, banking big sleeps. I think I averaged 8.5 to 9 hours sleep a night in the last month or last week. So good numbers. And yeah, I think I got 8 last night, but I'll take that because I was up late writing poems. Just trying to think what else I did. Yeah, that's been my last week. Just eating well, cooking well, sleeping well, and just trying to focus on output as best I can. But it's one of those weeks where the bigger the training, the more eating. I find it hard to balance work with that sometimes. So this week I feel that I want to focus a lot more on work, and I want to create like a sign up and mailing list and get that out. So I've got a landing page going, and I have a couple products in mind. I want to repurpose the thought sheet and get that out there so that people can do that any time of the year, not just at the end of the year. I have Project 67 coming, which is all about creativity, habit building. There's a fitness component to it, but I also incorporate a rest component to it. So that's something I want to get out. I had some great feedback come in from one of the listeners of this podcast from Innsbruck, Ben G. He said, huge fan of your podcast. Would it be possible for you to maybe publish a training plan or some guidance for intermediate runners to prepare for a marathon? Would be fantastic. And I ended up having a chat to Ben last night, and I said, I program runners at the moment, and I like to program because I think everybody's where they're at on their current journey of running is so different from person to person. And he said, I understand that, but it'd be cool to just get some tips on how to schedule a long run or how to break up a long run, tips for running slow, training at low heart rate. And I really like that idea. At the moment, I'm not really drawn to writing out a PDF. I'm loving this audio format. So I think that there could be a little spin-off audio series that I put up on the Josh Lynott Project. I've alluded to it previously about having the Josh Lynott Run Project, which is running focused podcast. So I think that could be something else. And yeah, creatively still feeling pretty good. And I think, again, creativity is really a muscle that is flexed. The more you flex it, the better you get at it. Even on the days where I don't feel like creating or quote unquote as creative in my mind, if I was to look back at 6 months, 2 years ago, I think my creative muscle is growing stronger. And I definitely want to do more on the topic, or like record more thoughts on the topic of creativity, because creativity isn't just something, it's not the traditional sense of painting or sculpting or writing. I really believe that we all are creative, and the act of creation is putting something out into the world that hasn't existed before. So whatever that is, whether that's a new outfit, whatever spread you put on your toast, your words, the way you garden, the way you arrange flowers, the way you take a photo, the way you text your friends, like the way you make lunch for your family or dinner for your family. There's so many things that make you creative. So whenever you make something or do something or say something or wear something, it's like you are being creative. And I really want to encourage you and just to everyone that life and living in itself is a creative pursuit. But anyway, that's not where I wanted to take this week's podcast. This week, I actually had a few ideas, and I decided to let my Instagram channel and all the members in there vote on the direction of this week's podcast. And I posted 3 options in the channel. The first one was risk-taking. Risk is a muscle. The second one was abundance mentality. And the third one was knowing what you want in life, but not having it yet. So I think the last time I checked, risk-taking had 50 votes, and knowing what you want but not having it yet had 41 votes. So it was quite closely contested. And I'm really interested in making a podcast also on knowing what you want but not having it yet. I feel that's something that is quite relevant to me at the moment, but also a lot of people in my circle. And so I want to flesh that one out and eventually talk about that. But I'm going to do one on risk-taking this week, and I think that will actually lead in really well to knowing what you want but not having it yet. So risk-taking, how about it? How do you feel? How do you personally feel about your ability to take risk? It's quite an interesting question. And I think risk-taking is a really crucial an important tool, skill, and part of life. And it's something that if you don't embrace it, I would encourage you to start viewing it in a different lens and really embracing it as much as possible. It is a workshop that I deliver on my water sesh retreats. And as you hear in every introduction, the goal of this podcast is to help you slow down, appreciate the small things, and to take more risk. Why do I love taking risk so much? And what is risk? That in itself is quite an interesting question. Let me quickly define risk. Let's see what comes up. Risk, a situation involving exposure to danger. The next one is exposed to danger, harm, or loss. My personal definition of risk is a situation with an unknown outcome. And personally, I frame risk and adventure in the same bucket. If someone asked me what an adventure is or what it means to be adventurous, I would say it's to engage in activity with an unknown outcome. If I know what's going to happen, then that's not an adventure. And it's the same way. If I know what's going to happen, then it's not a risk. For me, a risk is I want to do something there's a chance that there's a positive outcome for me. But there is also the chance of a negative outcome. So there's so much to explore, and this is why I love doing the risk-taking workshop, because I see risk as it's kind of a connector from where you are now to where you want to be. At some stage, and like I talked about in last week's podcast of looking at your current day and your ideal day, to get to your ideal day, you have to change something. And change is just one of the universal constants in life. There is no, life is always changing, straight up. And within that, there is risk. Risk is also change. So to bring about change, you have to take a risk. Risk means that there's an unknown outcome. You got to embrace that. Because if you don't, you're just going to stay in the same place. And that itself, choosing to stay in the same place, I believe is also a risk. So, wow. Maybe this double coffee is really going to just send me to a new world today on this podcast. But I'm very passionate about this topic, and I don't necessarily think I'm like the riskiest or the best risk taker in the world, but it's something that has paid off time and time again for me and really helped me get to where I'm at in life now. It's helped me meet the people I have, go to crazy places, have awesome adventures, expose me to experiences that I never thought possible. So let's just, if I am just to quickly like rejig, go back over my life, like what are some big risks I've taken? For me, one of the first ones was booking that one-way ticket to Hawaii, putting uni on hold, not having much money for a 3-month trip to Hawaii, then buying a moped, having even less. Like that's a risk. That could have, there was no outcome. I could have run out of money. There's a lot of different things that could have happened. Within that trip, there's also dumb risks. Like I remember we went on an adventure across the other side of the island. It got dark. We came home in the dark, on mopeds, without helmets, on the motorway, going 100 kilometers an hour in the rain. Like if I came off, I would have died, hands down. Probably one of the most stupid things I've ever done traveling, which I didn't really think much of at the time, but I look back and I'm like, wow, what were you thinking? Was when I was 19 in Hawaii, one of the guys I was living with was a big wave surf photographer. And in the time living with him, I'd go and do all the pool training. I'd do the underwater training. I remember I was the fastest swimmer. I had a better breath hold. We were going out to shore breaks and I was sweet. And then the first big winter swell of 2015 hit Hawaii. We saw it coming. We were tracking it. And this day we drove over. And I remember driving down the road, like this, you see the long road going into Haliiwa. And it was just, as far as you could see on the horizon, it was just whitewash. Like the waves were massive. And then we got to North Shore, we parked up, we walked down onto the beach at Pipeline, and we're just watching these waves roll in. And when these waves hit, because Pipeline is a wave that is so close to the beach, and it's such a big, scary wave. In the back streets of Hawaii, you see all the rest in peace and the little memorials of people that have died. And like, it is a serious, when Pipe and the North Shore is big, it is a scary place. It's quite haunting to know that like something so beautiful has also taken so many lives. But that's another tangent in itself. Anyway, I now had my own set of flippers or fins to, like, for when we were going out and shooting shore break. When I say shooting shore break, I had a GoPro 4 probably, and my friend at the time had a Canon 1DX in a water housing. So he was like properly rigged up, very, very experienced in the ocean, in Hawaiian ocean. And yeah, I was like, oh, I'm okay. I can swim. Sweet. Anyway, we finally put on our fins and our flippers. Fins, flippers, whatever you want to call them. And we decide that we're going in. Well, John decides that he's going in. So me sitting next to him with my GoPro being like, oh, I've kept up with John throughout our 2.5, 3 week swimming training block. I'm also going out on Pipeline. So I put my flippers on. We watch the ocean. We can see there's a big rip, but the rip takes you jump in, you dive under like just wall after wall of just white water. And then you get in the rip, it takes you out the back, puts you in the channel, and then you're just watching these waves that are like moving apartments coming through. And you can see, I don't think unless I go to Chopu and sit in a boat and take photos of waves, I don't think I will ever get this view again, because I don't imagine myself anytime soon becoming good enough at surfing to be out on pipeline in a swell this big. But you could see all the way through the wave. Like there was a hole that the whole wave had curled over, was coming down, touching the water again, and I could see through it. And these waves were passing me by. I was like, oh my gosh, this is wild. Anyway, I get in the rip and I make it out to the channel 5 minutes before John does, because I'm carrying a GoPro and he's carrying this big camera that's heavy, it's bulky. So swimming with that is a lot harder than I was pretty much freestyling once I got out there. Anyway, I'd been out there for about 10 minutes and all of a sudden a Hawaiian lifeguard comes over to me and he goes, "You've never been here before, have you?" And I said, "No, it's my first time out here." And he said, "Well, I'm taking you in." I was like, no, it's okay. I'm with my friend. He's like, "No, I'm taking you in." And by this time it was about 5 p.m, getting close to sunset. And I kept trying to dispute it. And then he's like, "No, like you're coming in." And so anyway, he turned the jet ski around, held on to the sled at the back and got pulled into the beach and did the walk of shame along pipeline. And that was, I'm very glad now that I got pulled in on that, because I would have had no idea how to get into the beach. But anyway, that was a risk that could have gone really, really poorly. Like absolute, if I got thrown over by one of those big waves, I could have died, honestly. So yeah, I've definitely taken some good risks. I've definitely taken some questionable and poor risks. And that's kind of what I want to talk about in this podcast, exploring the different type of risks that you can take. Some of these questions I ask on the What a Sesh workshop, and it's just, topic I'm super interested about. So what do I see as a positive risk? I see a positive risk as one that is, like, if it all goes well, it lends towards a greater life, it brings you closer to the feeling that you want to work towards. And if it doesn't go well, you have something to learn from. A negative risk is one that I see that is potentially detrimental to your health. And when we discuss it on workshops, something that comes up is something that is detrimental to others. It's one thing to take a risk that may impact yourself, but it's another to take a risk that impacts someone else. It makes me smile just thinking about it. One of the best risk-taking workshops that I ever engaged and delivered was on the Kangaroo Island session. And the group of people I had there were just incredible, like they always are on the sessions. But it was a very diverse group in terms of, career paths. Like we had a lady that was a dentist, a doctor, a lawyer. We had a young guy that was in uni. We had a geologist, a landscape architect. Trying to think who else we had there. I can't remember. A dietitian, but we had such a broad range of career paths, and exploring risk from the 20-year-old's perspective versus a lady that had a child versus the lady that was a lawyer. There were so many different views on risk. And I'm not saying that there's any correct or one view that you should hold on to for risk. What I'm trying to say is that risk plays an important part in all of our lives, and that if we can engage it correctly and flex it as a muscle, we open ourselves to more opportunity. And at different stages of our life, maybe we don't want to take on as much risk, but I think it's important that we do take on little bits of risk each and every day. So I call these taking on a little bit of risk each and every day. I like to think of as actionable risk. And I don't have a name for this. Like last week I had the brick, and I'm actually just thinking about it now. I was like, maybe this one could be called the axe. Just like you're having a swing and you're just putting a dent in a piece of wood. Maybe this little one could be called the axe. If I expand on it, today's tool could be the axe. But anyway, actionable risk is something that you can do every single day. And the reason I want you to think about what is the risk that you can take every single day is because when the time comes that you need to take on a big risk, you want to have the confidence behind you that you are a risk taker. You want to have the data behind you and all the feedback and all the belief that actually I am a risk taker. I've done this time and time and time again. And what I got one of the guys to do on my recent workshop or recent retreat in the Philippines was I said to him, I want you to pull up your iPhone notes, and every time that you take a risk, no matter how small, I want you to put it with a date, and I want you to say what you did, and I want you to add it to your notes. And every time you do this, you add another dot point on the list. And then in a month's time, in 6 months' time, in a year's time, you look back at this and you can be like, wow, look at me. Here I am. I didn't think I was a risk taker, but I have factual evidence that I am. That I have taken 200 risks this year, 300 risks this year, and you have a note that you wrote yourself of all the times that you did it. And I said to him, and I said to the group, and I've said this time and time again, that a risk could be if you go out to a running training or a running squad and you're doing 5 by 1 kilometer intervals and you're running in a pack and you decide that you're going to lead the rep and you go out hard and you blow up. That's a risk, okay? If it goes well, great. You might run a fantastic rep. You might get a boost of endorphins from leading the pack. You might hit a time that you've never done before. Seen a part of yourself that you didn't know was possible. The other side of that is that you might blow up. You might be overdone with lactic acid, fall off the back of the pack. Maybe it's a little bit embarrassing. The quality of your session is compromised, and that's the risk. But really, it's not life or death. You go home, you have dinner, you have brekkie, you go for coffee afterwards, and the show goes on. But it was a little risk, and you still took one. Taking a risk might be giving someone a compliment at a cafe, or asking a stranger a question. Makes me laugh. Yesterday, I was ordering the coffee. The owner of the cafe was clearly flustered, and I asked her a question. Just went straight over her head. Didn't even hear me. My mate that was standing next to me just laughed and was like, wow, that lady did not hear a word you said. Okay, the risk is I just put myself out there and, okay, whatever. Was there embarrassment? No. Was there opportunity for a great conversation to spark? There was, but it didn't come through. Risk might be cooking a meal that you've never done before when your friends come over. Could go great, or you could butcher it and you don't provide a meal that you're happy with. Like, risk can be such a trivial thing or something that really just has no grand impact on your life. But what happens when you need to make a decision or take a risk that does have a grand impact on your life, like moving state, entering a relationship, for instance, or signing up for a different degree, booking a one-way ticket somewhere? Who knows? Like, there's so many risks that you can take. What happens when you do something that really can dramatically change the trajectory of your life. And this can be almost debilitating for some people, which comes again into decision making. But again, taking a risk is also making a decision. And like I said about creativity and also a decision making and risk taking, they're all muscles that need to be flexed. So when it comes to making and taking these big risks, you want to have that catalog just built up, that's strong, and that just shows that, okay, I have data to prove that I am a great risk taker. And I genuinely think that we all are or all can be. And it's about compiling the proof to do so. So with actionable risk, a little activity that I want you to think about is, what is a risk that you can take every day or every week? And I want you to put that down in your journal. Then I want you to put in a risk and put a time frame on it for one that you can take in 3 months. So right now, this podcast is being recorded on August 22nd. So let's go September, October, November. November 22nd, open your calendar or whatever day you listen to this, 3 months from now, and put a note in there and be like, by this date, I want to have taken this risk, whatever it is, small or large. I want to have quit this job. I want to have applied for this job. I want to have booked a flight. I want to, who knows? I want to ask this person out on a date. I want to try cooking this meal for a group of 10 people. I want to enter this race. Like, there's so many different risks that you can take. But I want you to put one in and put a time frame on it. So that's that. What else do I have in my notes? Right here, I've got risk is a catalyst for growth, for failure, for lessons, for improvement. And it's how you choose to see it and if you decide to see it in a positive light or not. And that's something that I really want to hammer home, is that I think it can be very easy to view risk in a negative light of what if something goes wrong. And like I've talked about in previous podcasts, it's like, what if it goes right? Like, what is the best thing that could happen if I take a risk? Ask yourself that again. What is the best thing that could happen if I take a risk? So I really think that being a good risk taker gives you the chance to open up so many doors and opportunities in your life. And if it doesn't go well, it's all right, because it gives you more life XP. It helps you build character, resilience. And at the end of the day, if you're still alive, you're going to have a story from it. And with that story, you can then educate someone else who's one step behind you on the journey, or you can advise someone else, or you can just have a laugh. And if you can have a laugh at yourself for what you tried, then that's a good place to be. And again, it leaves no stone unturned. So this is why I'm quite passionate about risk. I'm also looking at definitions that I've taken down from workshops. So some of the considerations that were said were doing something that may not pay off, results are not high, the stakes are high, reward is high, but there's not necessarily a certain benefit to your well-being. A risk is something that might be potentially dangerous or uncomfortable. A risk is a sacrifice. There is a chance that something could go wrong, but it may have bigger rewards. A risk is being unsure. A risk is a fear of loss. So these are some of the definitions that I have. Looking at them, when I see fear of loss, I look at that and I think, well, that's one lens to look at it. But if you look at risk, and another way to look at loss is like, what are you not gaining, because when you take a risk, you have so much to gain. So rather than looking at it, what do I have to lose from my current position? If you don't take the risk, you just stay there. You flatline. Or maybe the graph is just so incremental, so like just above flatlining. Whereas if you take a risk, there's a chance for like exponential growth or a big spike or something that puts you up to the next level. And it's not that you're always going to stay at that next level, whatever that may be, or that next evolution of yourself, but it gives you a look in at what it feels like, what it could be like. And sometimes that's all we need. Sometimes we just need to see, even for an hour, a day, a week, or a small amount of time, what it's like to perform, to live, to act, to feel a certain way. And a risk is like a little dose of like life energy that shoots us up to somewhere that we haven't been before. And if we can, we sustain it and we evolve and we adapt, and then that becomes the new norm. And if we don't sustain it and we drop back down, well, at some stage it's like, okay, this is now what I have. This is what I've been exposed to. This is what I need to do to get to that place. So risk can be a real eye opener, door opener kind of action as well. So another note I have here is potential to gain something meaningful versus lack of purpose or potential reward. So risk, another thing with risk is that I think if you're looking for purpose or if you're looking for meaning, if you don't feel like you have that at the moment, at some stage you have to try something new. You have to do something different. So you may not get the reward and you may not find the purpose, but it's like, okay, I'm putting myself out there. Let's see if this helps me find my way, find my path. Maybe I'll meet a whole new network of people. Maybe I'll actually really like how this feels. And if I don't, well, I'm back to square one. Maybe I'm 2 steps behind. But again, even if you're 2 steps behind where you are now, you still have the data of where you are currently. So you know how to get back there. Risk is helping you get to a place that you haven't been before, to the unknown. It is the bridge to the unknown. That's what I was trying to say at the start of the podcast. Risk is the bridge to the unknown. So I'm not here trying to tell you to like go and jump off cliffs or invest huge amounts of money or do crazy outlandish things. Like, yeah, they are risk and that is an element of risk taking, but I want you to think about how can you implement small risk into your day each and every day. That's all it is. Another thing I have in my notes is look at the people around you, look at your support network, and what kind of risk are they taking? Because these people are going to influence the kind of risk that you take. And when I talk about positive and negative risk at the start, it's like, are the people in your network taking positive risks? Are they doing things in their life that are going to lead them to being a better person, to being quote unquote more successful with whatever your definition or their definition of success is? Are they taking risks that are detrimental to the people around them or to society or to their greater network or even to you? So look at the people around you and note down what kind of risks that they are taking. And like I think I've probably mentioned it in other podcasts, but write down the things that you admire in the way these people take risk. Are they doing it in a sustainable way? Are they doing things that really lead to learning? Are they opening their heart up more? Are they building deeper relationships because of the risks they take? Have they allowed themselves to be more financially free? Like, what are they doing? Just do a case study of the people around you and the risks that they take. So that, I think, is my last note. And I have actually one more note here, and it says, when we become comfortable for too long, I see this as our risk muscle becoming weak. So if we start cruising and going through the motions and we're just doing it easy, that's when our risk muscle is, what's the opposite of hypertrophy? Atrophy? Atrophying? I forgot. But anyway, it's not getting in size. It's not getting stronger. It's not being flexed. And that's what we don't want to do. So that is my spiel on risk taking this week. I hope that there's something that you found valuable in it. And I would love to hear what risk means to you, what risks you've taken recently, what risks you'd like to take. Send me a message if there's something that, when I eventually do risk taking part 2, if I should include this. I love forum discussions. I love bouncing ideas. I love hearing just the other side of the conversation. This is just where it sits and where it feels for me. And yeah, I'm not trying to tell you to live one way or the other. I just want to get you to think about, okay, maybe I could try this. Maybe I could take another little risk. Anyway, on to this week's 1%er. There have been a few, but I think it's very fitting that I'd say my 1%er from yesterday. My housemate called me up, said, let's go grab a coffee. We did. And then he said, let's go to Minnehaha Waterfall. We just wanted to jump in, get in the icy cold water. Whilst we were there was about a 7-meter waterfall jump. And rather than just jumping off straight away, I went and depth checked it, gave myself a brain freeze in doing so, but I wanted to make sure it was deep enough. I always do that if I'm going to jump off something. And yeah, did a little jump. It was great. It was a thrill. And it was just good to be like, okay, just do something that scares you as often as you can. So that was my 1%er, going to the waterfall, doing a cliff jump. Probably to add on to that 1%er, there were 2 ladies there that were watching us, and they were like, we're just going to wait around and watch you jump just in case anything happens to you. So as I was climbing up to the jump, I smiled and I was like, thanks ladies. Thanks for looking out for us. I appreciate it. So I guess there's a small chance that it was a negative risk because I could have put someone else in danger. I would have hated it if those ladies had to jump into the ice cold pool, but they didn't. So it was all good, but that was a risk. Yeah. So that was my 1%er and my risk of the week so far. My journal prompt for this week was, what is the best thing that could happen if I started taking more risk? My short answer to this week was, I believe in my heart, and I know from past life data that I will give myself the best opportunity to dive deeper into the life experiences that most excite me when I take risk. I know the challenges may be greater, but so is the potential for growth. That's what excites me. The best thing that could happen is that I further create a life that I'm proud of, one dense with stories. So that is my journal prompt for this week. That will be in the show notes. My poem will be in the show notes, as will be some questions. If you haven't joined my Instagram channel at the moment, I'm putting out a daily, bi-daily, once in the morning, once in the evening, a journal prompt, morning and night, 1%ers, thoughts, projects, updates, photos, and I'm also going to be putting in the link to my mailing list where I'll be announcing my Project 67, the updated thought sheet, and soon to be released my next online course, which will be talking about decision making, risk taking, go slow, running, all those things. Yeah, what an episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you found this valuable, I would really appreciate it if you could forward this on to 2 friends, or if you could post it on your Instagram story, Facebook, however, maybe screen record this and share some audio on TikTok, however you choose to share it. It would mean the world. If you have enjoyed this podcast, I would love it if you could leave me a rating on Spotify or iTunes, or even a thumbs up now that we're going on to YouTube. So that would be sweet. And yeah, another week done. Woo! Thank you very much. And yeah, if you found anything valuable, if you have any questions, if there's any way I can assist you on your journey, send me a message. I'm slowly getting back to messages one by one. But thank you again for the support. Thanks for making this community stronger. Thanks for the love. And I hope you have a great day. Ciao.